Hello, I would like to welcome you to our presentation, How to Become a De Gruyter Author. And first, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Karen Sora. I'm Vice President, Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics for the German-speaking markets. I have 30 years experience in publishing with Wiley, with Springer, and now for 10 years at De Gruyter, building the international program. And we would like to show you what you have to do in order to become an author with De Gruyter and why it would be of benefit to you to become an author with us. So next slide. Are you interested in writing an article with us? We are here helping you to become an author. Next slide. Do you know the story about the three bears with the little girl Goldilocks? Testing the bed and the food, and one of the bear bed and food is too hot and too big, whereas the other one is too cold and too small, and one of them is just right. And this principle of just right applies to different areas in science, but also to publishing with us. We have just the right size to invest in technological developments, but also to still be personal and still have personal contact, still have a face, which doesn't happen so often with other publishing companies. Next slide. So why is it important to publish with us? We have a 270 years history in academic publishing, meaning we know what we're doing. We have around 350 employees. And due to our slide size, we are just right for you. We are there for our authors, and the authors receive personal support the entire way. So if you can meet us at several conferences like here, and you can still recognize our faces, and we will still be in contact with you no matter what. Next slide, please. Some more figures about De Gruyter. So on the market since 1749, we publish 1,600 books and 800 journals each year. We have relationships with university presses, with Ivy League, like Harvard, Stanford. They publish their ebooks on our platform. And we have 20 of them, or over 20 of them. We publish subscription, but also open access. We are one of the largest open access publishers, and it's an important branch in our business. We have offices in Berlin, Basel, Boston, Beijing, and now if you think that we only have offices in cities with B, we also have offices in Munich, in Warsaw, and in Vienna. Next slide, please. And now about science, technology, and engineering, mathematics at De Gruyter. So which subject areas are we publishing? We have mathematics, we have physical sciences, and we have technology. And I don't know whether you can see everything, but my screen is, okay, yes, here you are. And we have physical sciences, which comprises chemistry, industrial chemistry, material sciences, and physics. And in technology, we publish engineering, anything but chemical engineering, which is then included in industrial chemistry. And computer sciences is also included in technology. Next slide, please. What are the advantages of publishing with De Gruyter? We have flexible publishing options. So you can publish in subscription, you can publish in open access. Your content can be published in a book, in a journal, or in online products. And we offer author support. We offer international marketing and sales, and of course, archiving and indexing so that your content gets the right visibility. Next slide, please. What are the flexible publishing options? And there we have graded textbooks, so we have STEM books, monographs, journals. If you go through the list from the top to the bottom, the content becomes more specialized. So in graduate textbooks, we prefer to have an authored textbook because then the content is more consistent and cohesive. The topics are broad, and I think other than that, everybody can imagine what a graduate textbook should be like. The STEM books, and here we need to explain a bit more. STEM is a book series aimed at young researchers who start their work in the industry and didn't have the particular training at their university, but also graduate students. In STEM, books can be authored or edited, and the topics are timely, interdisciplinary. For instance, a book on reactive and membrane-assisted separations or multiphase reactors will be placed here because these topics are addressed at university, but not in the breadth one needs when starting in the industry, and still one needs to have an introduction. The next one would be monographs, and here the monographs are specialized content. They publish research results. If we have a look at the title of a book, the title in monographs will be a lot longer than with graduate textbooks and probably also with STEM books. In monographs, the books can be edited and authored, but the targets are libraries. So it's specialized content publishing research results meant for libraries. And then in journals, you have the even more specialized content publishing the current state of your research, and you can publish them in subscription mode or in open access, depending if there are fundings. Next one. So why would you write an academic book? Well, it gives your teaching material a permanent home. Why not have your slides or your PowerPoint presentations in something printed where everyone can benefit from? Why not communicate your research to a non-expert audience? It raises your profile and it makes you famous. I can give you 3 examples where the author actually said afterwards, your books made me famous. Next slide. So how does it work? You discuss the book idea with one of the acquisition editors. And here you have the names of the ladies who also join the ACS meeting. So you can schedule meetings with us at this conference. And then you can submit the book proposal along with a template, which we provide. And you can start writing 150 to 350 pages. And if you see at the right-hand side, you see examples of our publications. The 2 in the top line with the gray-black frame are included in the STEM series. Then the one, yes, this one and the last one, exactly, are included in the STEM series. And then you see pulp production and processing. I don't know whether that's this topic is discussed in such breadth at the university. So this one is meant primarily for researchers or for people starting in industry. And then of course, also for graduate students who might be interested. Then the graduate textbooks have the colored frame. So here you have the industrial separation processes or the process engineering or the flow chemistry or process intensification. You see these topics are very broad, they're defined and they are introductory meant for graduate students. And then the second one in the top row is an example for a series of monographs. There we have the series title at the bottom of the book. And another example for monographs is at the bottom left-hand side, downstream processing in biotechnology, which is more specialized. It's a collection of articles and it's an edited, in this case, it is an edited work. So these are examples of the look and feel of our books. Next slide. Depending on whether you are an author or an editor, your name appears on the cover. So authors and editors are named on the cover. Chapter authors are found in the table of contents or in the contributors list within the book, not on the cover. This is just a side information because we've got to answer this question from time to time. Next one, please. So from the first idea to the publication, the Gruyter supports you throughout the whole process. From the first idea to the research, to writing, to manuscript submission, reviewing process, publication, article and book sharing, and then of course also increasing the impact. And then you have three stages circled in, like writing, publication, and increasing the impact. These are the stages where you can help us because we are together in this adventure. And of course, we do our job, but some of it is also expected of you. So when writing, you need to write having the search engine optimization in your mind. And I will explain what I mean in a later slide. In publication, it would be of great help if you too share and promote your work after publication. Here too, I will explain later what I mean. And then last but not least, monitor the metrics after receiving citations, of course. So in this whole project and process, we are together with you. Next slide, please. We offer author support, and we are individual and personal. After you sign the agreement with us with an acquisition editor, a content editor takes over. And here we speak the same language. Our content editor have a science background, so they know what you are talking about. And this also is of great help, and not every publishing company can afford that. We have competent copy editing. There, the production editors come into play. And then next stage, we have an appealing look and feel of the published content. And you as an author receive a 30% discount on our titles plus free shipping. Next slide, please. So what happens after publication? After publication, of course, we provide marketing and sales. We have an international distribution. We have our offices in the Americas, in China, and in Germany. And here we cover the international areas. We also sell online, of course. And then we are in close contact with libraries and institutions where we sell your content. We are represented at fairs, at conferences and congresses, so our authors can meet us at the most important conferences and have a personal chat with us. Next slide, please. We support the projects and our publications on Twitter accounts. We tag authors when they're also on Twitter, and we engage with the community. Next slide, please. How can you support your work? And now I'm coming back to the chart we've seen before. Yes? So it's not enough to write. You also need to be found. You need to write Google optimized. So pick the right title. This is very important. Pick the most important words first. Use keywords. So fillers nobody would look for don't make any sense in a title. So introduction or modern or properties. No, nobody typing in and searching for a certain content would start the search with such words. And this is very important. So the title doesn't need to be very specific, only in monographs, but in textbooks or in the STEM series, we need broad, comprehensive titles. And as said, not with the filling words first. They don't make sense in a title. Same thing applies to chapter titles. Here too, it would be good to think with the reader in mind. What would the reader search for? And put those words as keywords also in the chapter titles. Next. Then Also of help would be a strong author profile. It makes it easier for people to find your work. So if you are visible, people would come looking for you. And as much as possible, use social media. Today, people are on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and also many of you have personal websites. So don't be shy, brag about your work. Next one, please. Also very important is the rank on Amazon. Amazon, as being a large bookseller, of course, the individual titles are sold via Amazon, and it's important to be ranked as high as possible. So it would be important if you find colleagues who will provide testimonials or even reviews, and then it's also important to post these on Amazon. The Amazon rank is used to place your book on Amazon.com, and as you all know, past page 3, nobody goes looking for. And also important, other distributors use Amazon ranking. And the right-hand side, you have an overview of what the rank actually means. So if you have a rank of 100,000, that means Amazon has sold 100 copies per year. If you have a rank on 500,000, it means Amazon has sold 15 to 25 copies a year. This is just a side information and perhaps interesting to you. So next slide. And now, before I switch to journals, I would like to present you a project with a twist. And this one is Physical Sciences Reviews. It's a review journal which publishes 12 issues a year. So every month you have an issue with review articles, and it's used as a funnel for our book publication. Next one. So which books would be suited for this type of workflow? There are edited works where every chapter makes sense on its own. So for books where we have a collection of articles in which the articles make sense on their own. Normally, if you have such books in our production, one submits a chapter, we wait for the manuscript, the book isn't complete, we put it on the stack. Next chapter comes, same thing. We have a look whether the book is complete. If it's not complete, it needs to go on the stack. Next chapter comes in, the stack grows, but the manuscripts for the books aren't complete yet. So we have a lot of available but unpublished content and not citable, and the authors perhaps have to update their initially submitted chapter because the last one comes up to 18 months later, which is bad for the content. And then we have another solution. So if you submit a chapter of such a work, we wait for manuscripts. We see the book is not complete, but we can publish it as a journal article. So the chapter of the book you've signed for is published in the journal, in this Physical Sciences journal. The next chapter comes, and again, it is published in a journal, but completely unrelated to the book it was commissioned for. And only if the chapters for the book, all the chapters for the book are in-house, we can also do and publish the book at the end of the story. But the articles were published immediately when you submitted them. So this creates a timely access to our content. Readers can immediately access after the article was reviewed, accepted, and typeset. The authors have rapid publication. So at this point, you are citable. We create enhanced visibility and, of course, also offer the modern infrastructure for submitting the chapter via Scholar One, which you probably know from the journal business. And we as a publisher benefit of the modern workflow and also have a reliable timeline because we know that the work is already with us. And then we know that by the time we have everything in-house, we only need another 6 weeks for the publication. So in books, the publication timeline takes between 4 to 6 months if it's an edited work. And as said, Physical Sciences Reviews is the solution, because the published content is already out there, and you get, for one work, you have 2 citations. You have 1 citation in journal, which is important for your CV, and you also have a beautiful book at the end of the story. Next slide, please. And now to the real journals. So next slide, we publish subscription and we publish open access. So I will briefly touch upon subscription, and then my colleague Beata Socha will go over and explain the open access publishing model. So here is an overview of our subscription journals. We have a beautiful selection. I would like to mention Pure and Applied Chemistry, which is the journal of the Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, and they are celebrating their 60th birthday this year. Or you can see American Mineralogist, who had a huge peak in the impact factor this year. Also, I would like to point out reviews in chemical engineering, which also made a very nice development of the impact factor. And then next slide, you see our open access journals. And here I would like to mention nanophotonics at the bottom of the page. It's our highest ranked impact factor, very nice development, but also nanotechnology reviews at the top of the page. And now I would like to say goodbye and hand over to my colleague Beata Socha from the Open Access.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Let me take it from here. So what we've prepared here, next slide please, is a brief guide on how to write and submit the best possible journal article in order to increase your chances of acceptance. The first question any researcher has to answer is why they chose this specific topic for their study. There are many right answers here. You may have found an under-researched area, or a novel and quickly growing field of science, or a novel and approach to analyze data. Whatever the reason, the first step should always be to check the existing body of knowledge thoroughly. A lot of articles get rejected because of missing key references to existing literature. The next step is naturally to clearly define the goal of your research, what you want to verify, accomplish, and how you want to achieve it. And how will your study expand the existing body of knowledge? Once you've carried out your study, it's time to write up your findings in form of a journal article. Next one, please. When writing a paper, it is often recommended to already have a particular journal or group of journals in mind. This way you know who you're writing for. You can devote some time to reading the journal's description and scope to make sure that this is the right fit for your article. If you opt for an open access model of publication, you have to check the conditions such as licenses, APCs, etc., to make sure that they are in line with the requirements of your funding body, for instance. Naturally, every researcher wants to reach the widest audience possible in their field. Checking where a particular journal is indexed will help you figure out what the reach of your article will be. Similarly, impact factor can be of key importance to researchers, as it can translate into points, grant money, and so on. Next, please. Once you've chosen a journal or journals that you wish to submit to, you will have to decide on the type of article you want to submit. Please note that different journals may have different article types they accept, but the most common types are, of course, a research article, which is a regular article or a full-length article. In STEM sciences, publication speed can be vital, and that's why many authors choose a shorter type of article, either communication or a brief report. The difference between the two is minute and usually depends on the journal. In many of our journals, communication is where the preliminary results of a larger study are presented, where the research project is a multi-staged one and the authors want to publish the first confirmed results as soon as possible. Brief report, on the other hand, is usually focused on a small-scale study. If you are researching a completely novel under-researched area, you may also want to consider a case study, which requires less background and literature review than other types of articles. Again, you need to You need to make sure that that you read the instructions for authors very carefully to make sure that your paper fits the criteria of the journal type, of the article type. And at some point of your career, you will probably want to write a review article, which offers a systematic overview and a critical analysis of the literature published in a given area. Next, please. As mentioned before, there are different publication models: subscription, open access, and hybrid. Hybrid is basically publishing an open access article in a subscription journal. So you may also have that option available to you. Let's continue. So first, make sure that you read the instructions for authors, which will give you a thorough understanding of what is expected of you as an author, and make sure that you submit the best article fitted to the journal that you choose. Next, please. Now for some specifics. Each research article consists of the same elements: title, authors, abstract, keywords, etc. I will focus on some of them to give you some pro tips on how to write better journal articles and what to avoid in particular. Next, please. The most important thing about the title is to make it representative of the content of the article. Many researchers, particularly at the beginning of their research career, try to invent a very catchy title for their article. This can be really, really tricky though. Do not use slogans, jargon, wordplay, because that doesn't usually go well. The goal here is to make sure that the reader understands what the article is going to be about just by perusing the titles. So keep the title relatively short. The rule of thumb is to keep the article at about 10 words. Next, please. Then comes the list of authors. Every submission system will ask you to input the names of all the article authors in the order in which they should appear. So the first author doesn't necessarily have to be the corresponding author of the article. And there should generally be only one corresponding author for who speaks on the behalf of all the other co-authors. It should be mentioned here that journals do not look very kindly on listing too many authors in, for example, a very short article, as it can be unclear what their contribution was, and they may be asked to explain this during the review process. It should also go without saying that authors should avoid listing so-called ghost authors or gift authors, who are people who did not contribute to the article. Next, please. Keywords. Keywords, as Karin mentioned, are essential to making your research searchable via databases. They can also help find the right reviewers for your article. So make sure you give it some thought and choose the most representative keywords for your article. I don't think we need to go into more detail here because Karin covered it. Next, please. The abstract is in fact a bigger deal than many authors realize, especially at the beginning of their career. It has to be properly structured in order for the article to be even considered for peer review. This is where a lot of articles get rejected at the abstract stage. So make sure that you've summarized the entire article in your abstract. It's not just a preamble to the introduction. It shouldn't contain references, graphs, or tables, but it definitely has to include the main findings of your research. And most importantly, it cannot contain things that are not covered in your article. This is one of the most common mistakes for young researchers. However, many seasoned researchers will tell you that you should have a draft of your abstract in your mind when you start writing, but the abstract itself should be written at the very end. Next, please. Here are some other do's and don'ts of writing an article, and most of them are common sense, but I would like to focus on some of the key aspects here. Namely methodology. Methodology has to be clearly explained. It is often one of the biggest flaws of articles that are under peer review, that the methodology is not replicable because it is not clearly explained. So make sure that you devote enough space and time to explain your methodology. Let's continue. We're going to go into more detail in the next slide. Yeah, introduction. Introduction section of the article is where you have to keep it concise, but also present your whole article, and you have to structure it properly, listing all the subsequent sections of your article at the end. Avoid going into too much detail at the introduction section of your article because, well, you will simply lose the reader's interest. Let's continue. Results are, on the other hand, the most important part of your article, where you present the findings in a clear and well-structured way. You have to organize them into sections and use as many visual aids as you need to facilitate communicating your results. Don't overdo it, on the other hand, because if it's just graphs and tables and pictures, it may also be very distracting. So indicate all relevant aspects of your results here, and then move on to the discussion section. Let's continue. In the discussion section, you should show how your research fits into the existing body of knowledge, how it expands on it. You have to state the limitations of your study here as well, to show that you have, first of all, done your due diligence and you know what is missing in the body of knowledge, but also how can your research be taken further by other scientists. Next one. Finally, conclusions. Conclusions can be either a separate section or they can be joined with discussion, in which case they can be fitted into one or two final paragraphs of the section. Make sure that your conclusions are supported by your results. Don't use your own personal opinions to justify your findings. This is also a very common mistake. There is no room for personal opinions in the conclusion sections. Everything has to be evidenced by your study. Next one. Also, at the end of the article, it is the right place to include author statements. And there are a lot of different kinds of author statements. This is one of the things that is a formal requirement and usually doesn't warrant a rejection if it's missing, but it will require being completed at the later stage. So we have ethical statements, conflict of interest statements, funding information and acknowledgements, as well as, this is a new development in publishing articles in journals, a research data availability statement, which tells your readers if you decided to publish your research data and where it can be found if someone decides to look through it, to use it to replicate your study later on. Next, please. It should also go without saying that plagiarism is severely penalized by publishers and journals and may result in, first of all, blacklisting of an author, as well as a retraction of an already published article. So make sure that you check your article for too much overlap and be aware that all journals check for plagiarism to make sure that the research they publish is original. Next one. Now, many authors ask us what happens after your article is submitted, because that is where your role ends and you don't really know, you cannot see what happens next. So here is a short breakdown of the key stages in the publishing process. First, editor's assessment. Our editors check the scope, the content, and the language of the article and decide whether or not it merits peer review. This is the stage where a lot of articles get rejected. Then if an editor decides to proceed with peer review, there are different types of peer review that we can use. We can use single blind, where the author doesn't know the identity of the reviewers, but the reviewers are aware of the author's identity. This is a very common type of peer review. Double blind is where neither the reviewer nor the author know each other's identities. Finally, there is a new kind of, well, let's say new kind of peer review, which is open peer review, where reviews are published alongside an article, or articles are open for comments as they are submitted. So make sure that you check the peer review model before you submit your article to make sure that it's a good fit for you. And once our editors reach a decision, they send the article for publication or for author revisions, or simply reject it. After 1, 2, or even more rounds of revisions, when the article is finally ready for publication, the editor makes the final decision to accept, and we move on to the production stage. Let's move on. This is not the end of your article's journey. This is where production starts, and your article may go through language editing, then technical editing, then proofing, and final editing. And this is also where we ask authors to provide us a signed license to publish. After 1 or 2 rounds of proofing, the article is finally published online. And this is where the publication process ends. Let's move on. So why should you choose to publish with the Gruyter? We strive to offer our authors fast, comprehensive, and constructive peer review. As Karen showed you previously, we have a large portfolio of STEM and in particular chemical and material science journals, both in subscription and in open access model. Next. So please remember that we offer full support to all our authors, and you as an author are very important to us. Next slide, please, maybe. And we will support you in whatever way we can before, during, and even after the publication process. This is one of the reasons we have so many returning authors. And I think now it's time for the Q&A session. And if you would like to talk to us, make sure to use the calendars in our virtual booth to book a one-on-one meeting. Thank you very much for attending our webinar, Christine. Now it's back to you.
Okay. So if you were able to submit questions in the Q&A, I can go through them now, or if you think of one right now, feel free to type it out. I'm just going to make the other panelists visible again, or see if they want to start their videos again. So it's not just my face up here. Cool. Sorry, that's my cat. Okay.
Christine, can you repeat where the presentation will be found? Because I got some text saying that they logged in later on and they missed some of it, and where they can find the archive.
Definitely. Okay, so what's going to happen once the webinar is completed? We're currently recording it. Then the whole session will be uploaded to YouTube, so you can follow along with the presentation then. Also, I can talk and see if we can provide the presentation in PDF mode maybe to the participants afterwards via email. I think that shouldn't be an issue. Oh, I seem to be frozen. Am I unfrozen now?
Yes. Yeah, you are unfrozen.
Did you miss some of what I said, or did it all come through?
It all came through. So you were frozen, but the audio was still fine.
Okay, that's good. Right, so I don't have any questions in the Q&A section. Karen, were there any more that you got in the chat?
I only saw this one, but perhaps we should open up and just raise your hand, and then we will answer your questions.
Sure.
In real time.
In real time, yeah. I can allow people to turn on their microphone probably if they want to ask a question in real time. Or maybe you all just explained it so well.
Anyway, so if you're interested in meeting with us, just make appointments. We are here this week in the exhibitor space.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about what's going to happen for the rest of the week and what programming we have going on during the conference. So we do have a booth in the conference. If you're looking at the exhibitor section in the ACS platform and look at the platinum booths A to K, you'll find a Gruyter. Also, I think in the newsletter that most of you got, there was a link to a separate kind of permanent booth that will exist after the conference is over. In that booth, as well as the one on ACS's platform, you can schedule one-on-one meetings with us. So there's a Calendly there, and all of the faces that you see here are available for meeting with you. Myself, Karen, and Helene would be the people to meet for if you are interested in publishing a book. And then Piata and David Sleeman, who sadly couldn't be with us today, would be the ones to contact if you're interested in open access information for Piata and journals information for David. Okay. Also, I should say that tomorrow we're going to have a networking session hosted after all of the technical sessions of the conference are completed. And at that, we're just going to have another Zoom meeting. This time it won't be in webinar mode like we're in now. It will be in meeting mode. So everyone can have their camera on and have their microphone on. Depending on the amount of people that come, I can break people off into breakout rooms so that you can meet each other that way at the conference. It's just going to be a general casual session. So nothing too structured, but a way to hang out after the technical sessions and get to meet and hang out with your fellow editors and attendees.